So recently, I did a video on basically learning how to leave how alone. And I would like to consider this a part two, sort of, because this not only expands on this topic, but it also kind of incorporates some of the things that have happened in my life recently that I feel like just inspires this talk, along with some of the conversations that I've had in one-on-ones recently. So the funny thing I've learned about the how. I've had a recent situation where there have been some things that I've been struggling with to where I've been kind of thinking of something negative that can happen. So let's just call it anxiety, just to summarize. I can think of something in particular that I've had anxiety about. But the funny thing is, something recently happened that made the thing that I was anxious about, or the particular scene in my mind that was giving me anxiety, something just happened recently that basically proved that the thing that I had anxiety about in my head could never happen the way that I specifically envisioned it in my head. And I thought that was funny because I think I gained a valuable lesson from that. Not only about imagination, but just anxiety and us psyching ourselves out in general. What I am really truly starting to understand is when it comes to the fruition of the things you imagine, or, the how, so to speak, since this is playing off the last video, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent, you truly never get to pick the how. And I want to read a quote that I was reading in one of Neville's, that I got from one of Neville's books yesterday. It says, "I have infinite free will in choosing my assumptions, no power to determine conditions and events. You can create nothing, but your assumptions determine what portion of creation you will experience." That may sound a little bit contradictory and actually a little bit confusing because, the phrase is, imagination creates reality. I believe that section of the chapter was for the outer you. And I understand that pretty much after my last situation. What that's essentially telling you is that the outer you does not get to decide the conditions, and basically you don't get to create the way. You don't get to create the how. You can assume and choose which part of reality that you wish to experience, but the way that those pieces are put in place to make that thing happen, that's not up to you, nor do you have the power to do that. There's another quote from Neville that says, "I can of myself do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the work." Actually, I believe that might be a Bible verse, but Neville quoted that. He said, "I can of myself do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the work." So the reason why I think this realization is important, because the last video was let go of the how. And in this video, I want to kind of point out human arrogance as a possible tripping point when it comes to experiencing the things that we wish to experience and our assumptions coming true. I myself know that this is one of my biggest challenges. And like I said, I 100% attribute that to arrogance and thinking that I know best. It's no different than when we were, our preteen and teenage phase, where our parents would tell us something and we would swear up and down that we knew best and we knew what we were doing. But the truth is we didn't. And I can go to countless situations where I didn't listen to my parents and I just thought I knew best. And it turned out exactly how they said it was going to. And that was from a standpoint of a higher perspective. As a child at that particular time, there was a limited way that I viewed the world, as to where my parents had a higher perspective just because of their own life experience and they were just older, more mature, whatever. I feel like that relationship is still very similar to the outer us, the human ego, so to speak, versus God, which is a higher intelligence, a higher understanding that can see infinitely more than we can. Yet there is a part of our mind that truly believes that when it comes to a manifestation or a desire that we have, we know the perfect way to make it come about. I actually, I used my book as an example in one of the videos, and I'll just keep going with that because I think that's a good one to use. With my book, I have made it up in my mind. I knew that I did. I was literally like envisioning the road to the book being done. And I decided in my mind that, okay, as a best-selling author, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. And that perfect road is going to, boom, just lead me straight to being a best-selling author. I can tell you firsthand that that road is not going anywhere near what I have envisioned in my head. But my human arrogance assumes that, well, it has to happen this way because this is the way that makes the most sense. So in the previous video, I told you to leave the how alone, but I guess I can really say this video is more encouraging you to be humble. You can't do the work. The Father within you, which is consciousness, does the work. And if you become so obsessed and committed to the how, if you make up a story in your mind that this has to happen this way or it's not going to happen at all, you lock yourself into really going into a cycle of constantly reminding yourself that you don't have what you gave yourself in imagination, that what you assumed is not real, because you're going to almost be going through your daily life looking for signs of the map that you personally drew, as opposed to just going through your life in a state of fulfillment. I've done that probably the last week and a half. I've been putting so much pressure on myself, taking myself out of the wish fulfilled, and to be quite honest, putting myself in a state of sadness and disappointment because I keep going back to that roadmap that I drew, not realizing that I was never supposed to be the one that drew the map to begin with. That's why the Bible tells you trust not of your own understanding. And if you trust in God, God will make your path straight. There's also another Bible verse that says, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. So the truth is we only have one job in this equation, and that's to believe, pray and believe. But true prayer is imagining the wish fulfilled. So that's true prayer, is being what you want to be right now, imagining the wish fulfilled, and to believe in the reality of what you've done. That is actually the only assignment that you were given in any of this. Anything beyond that, you're kind of stepping out of your lane, so to speak. And I can tell you from personal experience that stepping out of your own lane just causes stress and anxiety anyway. Trust will be a common theme when I make these videos. And kind of like I said in my one-on-ones, I noticed that trust was a common theme that kept popping up. All of this is about trust and faith. It is, because at the end of the day, as uncomfortable as it may make some of us, I know it makes me very uncomfortable because most of my life I believed that I have to be in control for things to be okay. When you've gone through certain things, when you feel like when you've gone through life as a victim, or when you've gone through things in life that have made you feel powerless or weak, or, things have happened that you felt like you had no control over, or hard experiences with dealing with other people, control becomes very important to you because somewhere in your mind, you make it up that these things never would have happened to me if I had more control. The powerlessness and lack of control is what made these things happen. So control and power become the most important thing in my life because that is how I can avoid getting hurt in the future. I know I asked a person in the one-on-ones yesterday, what are you trying to protect yourself from? And I think that's a valuable question that we need to ask ourselves on a daily basis when we notice that we're dealing with fear and anxiety. Ask yourself, what are you trying to protect yourself from? Because that motive of trying to protect yourself can sometimes lead you down a path of doing a lot of things that are not in your best interest, so to speak. And in this case, trying to protect myself is constantly trying to control things in a place where I'm not meant to control them. In life, things will be so much easier for you if you focus on controlling what you were meant to control. You were given control and power. You were. Like you don't have to take this as, well, I just have to go through life and I have no control or power over anything. That's actually not true. You have complete control and power in the realm that it was given to you in, meaning in imagination, meaning you are allowed to assume and imagine whatever you want, and you have complete ultimate control over that. Everything else is out of your hands. And that's because the divine intelligence just has a higher perspective than we do. We could never, as much as our human minds make us believe that we know what to do and we know the perfect way to put it together. It's funny because they would always say this in church anyway. God knows how to give you what you need and what you want in a way to where, number one, you won't mess it up later at a perfect time. You know how many times people say you can get your blessing too soon? Think of all the people who've won the lottery and then you hear about they ended up worse afterwards. Or think about, people who got what they thought was a blessing and then, later down the road, they say it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. The divine intelligence, the universe, God, I am, whichever word you want to use, understands how to position you and everything in your life to make it perfectly match what you desire in the right way. I believe it's when we, as the outer man, try to force and manipulate things to be how we want, is the road to chaos. And if I'm being totally honest, I believe that's why the world is the way it is right now, is because man has become so obsessed with doing things our way. We've become so obsessed with believing that we have the answers and we know the right way that we're not willing to submit and open our hands and let it go and trust that the divine intelligence knows how to give us what we truly desire without our interference. So ask yourself that question today. What are you trying to protect yourself from? And what barriers are in the way that will not allow you to release control and trust that the divine intelligence not only cares for you, but wants to give you what you desire? Because the truth is, it's always worked. I see a lot of posts on Reddit about, thinking that the law of assumption doesn't work, manifestation doesn't work, that they're crazy, whatever. This always works. And I've said that in another video. This actually always works. But the reason why you don't think it works is because you're so used to experiencing the negative sides of it and stuff that you don't want. When you go to try to experience another part of reality that you want, it doesn't happen because of different factors and baggage from the past and the other negative experiences you've had, that because you see more negative and positive, you just automatically assume it doesn't work. But it does work. The law of assumption, the thing that has manifested your life, the same rule that manifested your parts of life that you absolutely hate, is the same law that would manifest the parts of life that you would absolutely fall in love with. There's no in between. It's always working. Where you're at right now that's leaving you stuck is your unwillingness to let go and allow. Let go and allow. It was never your assignment to put the pieces in place. It was your assignment to imagine, trust, and believe. So if the last video was let go of the how, this video is humble yourself. Humble yourself and admit that I, the outer man, can do nothing. And the Father, the inner man, is the one that does all the work.